Good morning, ladies. I'm so glad that you could join me today in Christian Moms Fueled by Faith. I'm Nicole Nelson, if you're new here, and I am a Christian life coach for moms, helping moms faithfully follow God's purpose for their lives and avoid the distractions that come with discouragement and worry. And today, I want to encourage you in your motherhood. This week, we're kind of focusing on those inner feelings that we have, and one of them today being loneliness, and how to really start to break through that feeling of loneliness in our own lives, in our own hearts, and to work through some of that. So today I want to talk a little bit about my own story, my own struggles with loneliness. It's not something, I do believe that it's something I've seen over and over, moms saying how they struggle with this. And in my own life, I struggle, I've always been surrounded. I know I've been surrounded with people who support me and love me. And yet there is that feeling of loneliness. There's that feeling of not belonging. There's that feeling of, that you kind of get into that mindset where you're in this constant pity party of you look at even at a play date and you see two other moms talking and you start to feel sorry for yourself for no reason at all. You're at the play date and they just happen to be having a conversation, but you're not part of it, and it's proof to you that you don't belong, or that they don't like you, or you're better off just staying at home. And all of those are lies. All of those are lies that are meant to keep you feeling isolated. I'm trying to think, there's a few other things. There are, like, some other examples would be, if you're just home caring for your kids and it's just you and your kids, and that just feeling of not knowing who to turn to, that desire for the deeper conversations, the desire for that sense of community, and each of us in our own homes, it can get isolating, especially right now, especially when we are kind of more asked to keep our distance from others. It just really makes this a lot worse. But it can also be, that feeling of loneliness with your husband. You desire that deep connection, and he might be sitting down after a long day's work and doing his own thing, doing his own hobby, and you watch him and you feel lonely because you want that connection with them. And we are created for human connection. We are created to support one another in life, to support one another in faith, to support one another within our own families. And it can feel really difficult to know how or where to start. And we like to make it a little bit more complicated than it is, because really what it is, it's building relationships. And it's not going to look perfect right away. It's going to feel messy. It's going to be clumsy. And what I want to encourage you to do is keep going. Keep trying, even when it feels like you're doing it all wrong, or it feels like it might not be worth it, and you start having the second doubts, and you start having those worries about what if they're judging you instead of really caring about you, and what if they don't want what you don't want that level of friendship, all the what ifs. And instead of reaching out and being there and being a friend and doing it more for the sake of others versus for just for the sake of filling a void that is in your heart. The kids are out in another room. Before I move on, I want to touch on that and ask you a question where many times it's like we have this void and we want to fill it. We want to fill it. And that feeling of being alone, the first thing that I would say to fill it with is to make sure you are forming that relationship with God. And I'm not going to delve into that too much here because we've talked about that before, and we'll be talking about it again, and really developing your relationship with our Lord and knowing that first you belong with Him. You are never alone. And when you can have that firmly planted and firmly planted in your heart, it is so much easier to be able to turn around and say, I am not alone, and to be able to respond and reach out in love to others. I remember, in this feeling, I would try, again, there would be moments where I felt so discouraged when I was reaching out. I was like, I just want some friends. I just want to be able to connect with people. I just want to be able to be with them and share in life and all these things. And so I was thinking about myself. I was thinking, what do I want? And I would go and I would do nice things. It was that I was coming. I had good intentions, but it was still not coming from a complete place of giving, of self-giving, where I was so focused on what it was that I needed and what I wanted versus just thinking about the good of the other person. And that's what I want to encourage you today, to reach out to others in whatever ways you can, especially in this time of our lives, and reach out not thinking about, okay, what can I get out of this relationship? What can I get out of this friendship? How is this going to serve me? How is this going to fill me up? But rather, how can I serve? How can I bring joy to this other person? How can I make this other person feel loved? Not because of what it can bring back to me, but for the sake of love, for the sake of loving our neighbor, and for the sake of loving God. Because when we love our neighbor, we are loving our Lord. And when we love our Lord, we can turn around and love our neighbor better. And that's why I had to mention it in the beginning, because it is, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself, the two greatest commandments. And it is so easy to get lost in the self-pity and the self-sabotage instead of focusing at the heart of the matter and focusing on our Lord and looking at Him when we want to reach out, when looking at Him when we want to, fill this void. And so instead of looking inward at ourselves, we can look at Him. Sorry, Lisa, I got kind of distracted. Plant seeds and demonstrate love. I love that. Absolutely. Yes, it is. It's love. Unconditional love is loving without expecting anything in return. And it is such a beautiful thing to be able to do that, to reach out and develop those relationships and friendships without expecting anything in return. And it feels messy. Again, like I said, there is still a level of vulnerability that comes with it, but vulnerability is also part of relationship. Looking at my notes, And it's scary because you're putting yourself out there. But that's what our Lord asks us to do. He asks us to love regardless of what the person might think, because it's not for them. It's not for them to applaud you or say what a great friend you are. We want to be a good friend. We would love to be, our human tendency is to be noticed, but that shouldn't be the point. The point should be to love and to reach out and love. And I want to challenge you to do that. Step out of your comfort zone and be the light in someone else's darkness. When you can start to do that, it'll start getting easier. There's like so many things in my mind right now. It's just like, it's so simple. It's so simple, but at the same time, exceedingly difficult because of the criticism that we fear, because of, the judgment that we fear, because of, we want to do it right. We want to have a positive effect on others. We want to experience a positive effect in our lives. But yes, Lisa, love does take practice. Just with anything, any virtue, it does. It takes practice. And I want to encourage you in that, because it is so easy to get discouraged and to not be discouraged, to keep on doing it in the mess. And keep on doing it when you're like, oh, that conversation didn't go like I thought it would. I was, when you're just trying to reach out and be a friend and you just feel like the conversation just wasn't as wonderful as you were hoping it would be. But what if that's okay? Trust God with that. Trust God with that conversation. Say, Lord, I ask you to bless that person. Lord, I ask you to use the words or use the actions that I, brought to the person, the love that I brought to the person, and I ask you to just fill them with your love. After each encounter with someone else, after each action that you take in loving someone else, give it to God and ask Him to bless it. Because it's not about knowing, the point of it, it's not about knowing what you did and having a checklist of how great you are. Again, that takes the focus off of God and back onto you. The focus is saying, okay, Lord, I trust you with this and I ask you to bless it. And then let it be. And then move on to, that next action. And then look back and say, do you still feel that same sense of loneliness and isolation? Because in my experience, you don't. Nothing else may have really changed, but you'll feel more of a sense of being at peace. You will feel not alone and isolated. For lack of a better, I can't think of an antonym for that at the moment, but there will be joy in your heart that wasn't there before. So again, how can you step outside of yourself and be a light? Be a light to others. I hope this was helpful today. I hope that you can take some nugget and use it today in your own life and be the light in your own life to your children, to your family, to those around you, and to help get rid of this feeling of loneliness by being the person who takes the first step in reaching out. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next week.